What's up, everybody, and welcome here to my Premier League predictions for Matchday 27 on this video. We'll start things first at Villa Park for tomorrow at 3 o'clock as Aston Villa will host Leeds United. Huge game for Aston Villa. They are currently 8 points behind where Arsenal currently at in third place in the league. However, for Leeds United, a big draw in their last matchup in the Premier League to Chelsea away from home. And they are actually a point above Spurs in 15th place in the Premier League. And obviously, I think Leeds United, if they can carry on this momentum, of course, if they can carry on this momentum, they've done quite well in the second half of the season. After the first half of the season, had some couple of points, draws, a few back-to-back losses. And then they started winning games, picking up form, moving up the table slightly now, Leeds. And I've seen that the Leeds have been a really top side. They've been in the second half of the season. They always somehow get a point or maybe a lucky win. And that momentum's now boosting Leeds up the table in the Premier League. The biggest issue about Leeds, they are playing away from home to Aston Villa. Villa, all due respect to Aston Villa, they are not in a title race of Arsenal this season. Despite them to be 8 points behind from Arsenal in third position, they are not in a title race. But they could be. It all depends if Man City drop points and even Arsenal drop points again. But in this matchup, in my score prediction for the game at Villa Park for tomorrow, I do see this game coming down to probably a win for Aston Villa, I think. I think Villa will actually get a win over Leeds, personally. I do think that Leeds will obviously defend well. Defensively, their record's been pretty good. But at the same time, Villa are at home, and Villa will definitely really give Leeds a game. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Aston Villa as my official score prediction for this weekend. I do think Villa, they have to try and keep themselves in good form because they want to stay in the top four race. They want to be in a title race if they can, with Arsenal and Man City in those mixes. I don't believe they're going to win the league, but they're going to be up there competing. So I do think that Villa will get the win at 3 o'clock tomorrow. So my score prediction will be 2-1 as my official score prediction for tomorrow. Now we move on now to the 3 o'clock game, the other matchup of the Premier League. It's Brentford, and they play at home to Brighton Hove Albion. Very important game this is going to be for Brentford, and also for Brighton as well. Both teams, of course, will be really up for this matchup because Brentford have got 40 points so far in the Premier League. They did draw to Arsenal in the last Premier League game. They drew 1-1 at the G-Tech Stadium, and that was a big point for Keith Andrews' team. And they have been a very, let's say, solid top half of the table team without Thomas Frank in charge and without the players they've had from last season. And I've said this before, I thought Brentford will be in a relegation scrap, but at the same time, Brentford and even Brighton as well are both teams are really driven with data, in their scouting network and what they recruit as well. They're both exact the same type of club, type of stature in terms of growing in the Premier League, and I can see that from both sides. Obviously from this season and even seasons before that as well, when these two teams as a Premier League side for the last couple of seasons. But I do think this game at the G-Tech Stadium on the weekend will be a very tight one. I do think that Brighton will definitely try and do something to try and stop Brentford away from home. But if I've got to put a prediction out of this matchup for the weekend, I do think this game might come down to a draw, I think. So in my score prediction for tomorrow, I think Brentford will draw to Brighton 1-1. One goal from these two separate teams as my score prediction for tomorrow. So I do think that Brentford and Brighton will share a point. I'm going for 1-1 as my official score prediction for this game on the weekend. Now we move on now to the next matchup. It's Chelsea. They play at home to Burnley. Burnley are in the relegation zone. They are in the relegation zone in a very dangerous position. They are could be, maybe, relegated to play in the Championship for next season. I know they've got a couple of games to play from now until the next 11 games left of the season. They've got a lot of games to cover, though, to try and stay in the league. Or even those 11 games might even be their fate. Again for Burnley. Burnley always been a yo-yo team, back and forth every year. But they do play Chelsea away from home. Chelsea, however, under Liam Rossini, did very well in the FA Cup by beating Hull City. Did draw disappointingly to Leeds 2-2 in their last Premier League game at home a few weeks back. They do play here against Burnley, though. This will be a very, very huge game this is going to be for Chelsea. They keep themselves in that top 4 race. And they have to try and perform well against Burnley. I know Burnley picked up a big point they beat Palace, didn't they? 3-2 away from home in their last Premier League game. And that was a huge one for Scotty Parker's side. But I do think that with Chelsea, however, I do think they're going to probably definitely win the game, though, despite how Burnley been a little bit, let's say, threatening sort of in games, especially Palace, that 3-2 victory. I do think Chelsea win this game for my prediction for tomorrow. I'm going 3-1. 3-1 to Chelsea, the Blues. They are going to win the game 3-1. And that's my official score prediction. I don't think Burnley will be anywhere winning this game, of course. But they're going to be a threatening team in some moments in the game, yes. But I don't think they're going to go all the way and win the game over Chelsea. So I do think the 3-1 scoreline will be the prediction for this game at 3 o'clock for tomorrow. Now we move on now to our next matchup. It's West Ham United versus Bournemouth at 5:30 kickoff. And a big matchup for West Ham United because they only are now 3 points behind from Nottingham Forest in 18th position. I do have a bit of hope, I think, that West Ham might be safe this season. Even around January, when Forest were leading or won the game 1-0 at the London Stadium, and they're only like 7 points clear, they were, Forest, from West Ham United. I thought West Ham United were done from that moment in time to lose to Forest at the London Stadium from last month. But however, they picked up some form, they picked up some resilience, they brought in some few players in the transfer market, especially Adama Traore for Fulham. West Ham United have done some very, very good transfer business by signing Adama Traore from Fulham. And I have seen improvement for West Ham United during the last few games. I know that they might be a little bit bitter, West Ham, to draw 1-1 in the late minutes by a goal from Sisco for Manchester United. I thought West Ham might have gone and got the winner at home against Man United at the London Stadium a few weeks back. But they did win that game. That puts a lot of pressure on Forest and a lot of pressure on Spurs as well. But my honest prediction between this game and Bournemouth, even though Bournemouth, of course, are in a safe position in the top 9 of the Premier League, nearly up to 40 points this season, I do see West Ham picking up a win at 5:30 kickoff for tomorrow. And I do think West Ham will go for the win. And I'm going to go for a 3-2 win for West Ham. I think West Ham will make it tough for themselves during the matchup. But however, they'll be really resilient. They're going to be really at it. They're going to be not going to give up at all. And I can see that West Ham's spirit so far in the last few games. And under Nuno Espirito Santo in his second half of the season, I've seen West Ham's now picking up some form. And they are now putting the pressure now on Nottingham Forest, who are a position above West Ham United in that relegation race. But I do think that West Ham will pick up a home victory, I think. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 win for the Hammers for tomorrow. So 3-2, my official score prediction for the Hammers for tomorrow. Now my official score prediction at 8 o'clock for tomorrow between Man City and Newcastle United. Newcastle have got to do us a favour because if they win tomorrow, they'll be 2 points behind from us. A game in hand because we've got to play Spurs on Sunday. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, in this game for hopefully Newcastle can do us a favour and give us the win. Give us the 3 points. That's what I want to see Newcastle do away from home. However, Newcastle's form away from home at Man City Stadium has not been great. Obviously not being great. Obviously the head-to-heads they both had when Newcastle travel to Man City's ground. The last time they played each other this season, from the first half of the season, Newcastle won 2-1 against Man City at St James's Park Stadium in that matchup. But as of this game here, Newcastle's form at the Etihad Stadium is not as great. I do think that Man City, unfortunately, will go for this win. I'm only saying unfortunately because it's going to affect Arsenal. I think it's going to affect by the end of this weekend. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 score prediction for Manchester City. I think Man City have got all the ingredients to go and win this game. They've got all the players fit. Got Semenyo, got Gay here as well, Phil Foden, Haaland. You've got some very good players at Man City. That quality is going to be there at home all day long. For Newcastle, great trip and victory over Karabag in the knockout playoffs in the Champions League from Wednesday's game. But they ain't going to hack it against Man City though. And I do expect for Man City to go and pick up a win. So my score prediction for the end of tomorrow at 8 o'clock will be 3-1 for the Sky Blues of Manchester. And that will put a lot of pressure on us now to go and get a result over the Spurs in Matchday 27. But that is my score prediction, 3-1 City. Now we move on now to my official score prediction between the Palace and Wolves on Sunday. Big game at 2 o'clock kickoff between the Palace and Wolves. Wolves did so well by coming back from 2-0 down to us, to our team Arsenal, and scored 2 goals in the second half and get a point against us in the league. That was an embarrassing result. I was ranting and raving. How could we give away 2 goals away for Wolves to go and get a point against us? Wolves are long gone. Wolves are long gone now. They're going to be relegated now to play in the Championship for next season. But we actually gave them a little bit of, not lifeline, but a little bit, let's say a bit of hope, of course. They can go and bounce forward now to these games now, going from now until the end of the season. I don't expect Wolves now to be safe by any means from relegation. But what I would see about Wolves, they're going to probably might really play a bit of positivity football under Rob Edwards. I can see that positivity might even come into the Wolves' team now from now into the next 11 games of the season left. They do play Palace on a very, very dark, patchy moment. They are Palace. They lost to Burnley 3-2. Did very, very poorly in the Conference League during Thursday's game. They drew 1-1 to a Bosnian side, 1-1. And Oliver Glasner was not very, very happy man, he wasn't, by the end of that game. And I've seen that Palace are now picking up some poor form recently. And losing to Burnley, Wolves' fellow relegated side, in the same position as Wolves, I think that's going to really, really be a worry, I think, for Palace. And obviously, for Wolves, I do think with that 2-2 draw on Wednesday, they're going to probably build momentum from this moment, I think, for Sunday. And I'll be a bit of a surprising result, I'm going to say, in my score prediction for Sunday. But I don't really care, because I think Wolves, since they fought back hard against the league leaders of Arsenal, I see Wolverhampton Wanderers picking up a big win away from home at Selhurst Park. And I'm going to go for a 3-1 win away from home for Wolves. I think Wolves are going to Selhurst Park and they're going to play some very, very good football. And I know they haven't done that all season, but that draw against Arsenal on Wednesday will build them that momentum, of course, going into this game right here for Sunday. So I do think they're going to go and pick up a result against Palace. Palace will be very shell-shocked again, as they were against Burnley a few weeks back. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Wolves as my score prediction for Matchday 27 of the Premier League between those two sides. Now we move on to our next game. It's going to be Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool at 2 o'clock at the City Ground. And they've got a new manager now. Sean Dyche's been sacked as manager. He's long gone. They drew 0-0 to Wolves way back in their last Premier League meeting from a few weeks back. Sean Dyche Forest should have got a win in that game, personally. Should have beaten Wolverhampton Wanderers, Forest. Forest should have beaten Wolves in that matchup from the last match days of the Premier League. But they actually drew 0-0 to Wolves. And that really puts a lot of pressure now on Forest a little bit, because below them, West Ham United are only 3 points behind from where Forest are currently. So there's a big spin-off between Forest and also Liverpool. Forest and Wolverhampton. Forest and West Ham United. Sorry, I'm getting my names wrong. Bit of a spin-off between those two sides. It even includes Spurs involved in this equation as well, in this relegation dogfight. But in my honest prediction for this game, for Forest and for Liverpool, though, we've got to talk about Liverpool first before we predict this game. Liverpool have been great. They picked up some good form as well recently. I know they did lose 2-1 to Man City. It was a disappointing loss at Anfield, but they did very well by beating Sunderland from their last Premier League matchup, of course, from their last Premier League game. The only club in the Premier League have ended Sunderland's unbeaten run at home in their last Premier League matchup at the Stadium of Light Stadium. I thought Sunderland might get a win over Liverpool, but Liverpool showed a lot of heart they did in that game, and they picked up a big win, and Sunderland's first loss at home came to Liverpool. So this is going to be a very interesting game. Liverpool's in a dogfight now to try and challenge for European football, to try and qualify in the UEFA Champions League, because you've got Liverpool, you've got United, you also got Chelsea. Those 4 teams in that fight, including Brentford as well, and Aston Villa are also in that equation. So it is a very important game, this is for Liverpool in this matchup. But if I've got to put a score prediction in this matchup on the game for Forest and Liverpool, it'll be a tough one at the same time due to managerial bounce, because they've got Victor Piera now, the former Wolves manager, is now manager for Forest now. And I'm only saying about this managerial bounce could happen though, because he done so well on yesterday's game as his first managerial run for Forest. He went to Turkey, they thrashed Fenerbahce 3-0 in the Europa League knockout playoffs. And I thought maybe Fenerbahce were the favourites to go and knock Forest out of the Europa League in these 2 legs. But Forest went to that game and won that game. And even Morgan Gibbs-White and Jesus played some very good football by scoring the goals for the Forest in that matchup from yesterday's game. So it ain't going to be easy for Liverpool though. Despite they're in a relegation fight, they've got a new manager bounce, maybe could really be a big problem for Liverpool, however. So in my honest prediction, to spit it out right now on this camera, I'm going 1-1. I think a 1-1 draw is going to happen, because Liverpool, I'm not going to get walked over by Forest, because they're in a top 4 Champions League race. For Forest, however, they want to try and get a good managerial bounce under Victor Piera. Their 4th managerial they've had this season, but you cannot underestimate Victor Piera. He did so well for Wolves last season when he made that great escape. They were currently 17th in the league when he took over from Gary O'Neill, and he kept them in the league up to 14th. And they had some great back-to-back wins from obviously from then until the end of the season, and that's why Wolves stayed up for another season in the top flight. And I can see that happen for Forest, though. I can see that for Victor Piera. But I do think there'll be a tougher game, though, for his first Premier League managerial run for Forest. But that's why I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw as the score prediction between these 2 sides, especially at the City Ground on Sunday. Now we kick things off here for my score prediction for Sunderland and for Fulham. Sunderland finally taste a home defeat this season after losing to Liverpool 1-0 in their last matchup. They're playing at home again. They're playing Fulham. Fulham, obviously, in that mid-table position. You cannot really expect Fulham to do it any more wrong or anything. In fact, in this season, they might have a little bit of a blip, dropping down, sort of down the table a little bit in that relegation fight during this season. But I felt Fulham's quality is a lot better off, and I expect Fulham to be obviously in that run of survival and being in the Premier League this season, obviously, because they always stay up now. That team find their rhythm now as a Premiership side. Always in that bottom half of the table or top half of the table. They always try and challenge themselves a lot higher now, Fulham. And even this season they've done that recently. But they do play away from home to Sunderland, however. Sunderland's back in the top flight in their first season back since 2017. They play some remarkable football, very good football they've had all season. You know, I never expected Sunderland to be in this position right now in the Premier League. I expect Sunderland to be in a relegation dogfight. But they've proven their doubters wrong, and they're doing it very nicely. Very organised they've been, defensively, attacking-wise. They've been very organised and been very been hard to beat at times this season, Sunderland. And fair play to them. They've been very good, they've been. And the best out of the three teams who got promoted to the Premier League. They've been the best team out of Leeds and Burnley. But they do play at home to Fulham, though. I do expect goals in this matchup, though, between Fulham and Sunderland. But I do think with Sunderland lost to Liverpool in their last matchup at home, I think Sunderland might pick up a win over Fulham at home for Sunday this weekend. So, in my honest prediction, I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Sunderland. I think Sunderland will be very good at home. You know, the spotlight's going to be at them. They'll be on TV on Sunday at Sky Sports as well. They're going to be all at this game. All the fans, you know, really helping the team, cheering the team on. Make it more intimidating. Make it a fortress for Fulham to not leave that stadium with those 3 points instead of Sunderland, however. And I do think that Sunderland will pick up together again after losing to Liverpool, and they'll pick up this win over Fulham as a 3-1 scoreline as my official prediction between Sunderland and Fulham as a score prediction for Sunday. Now we move on now to my score prediction between Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal. Big game this is going to be. Interesting. I'm not going to lie because we have been absolutely dog poo in the last 2 games. We've dropped points to Brentford. We dropped points to Wolves. Wolves, we should have won that game. Let's put it that way. We should have won that game. But it was an absolute joke at the end. We crumbled and collapsed at the end of the game at Molineux and allowed Wolves to pick up a point against us from Wednesday. We have got this game. We have to go and win. It's not just Brentford or Wolves or any smaller team. This is Tottenham we're talking about. Spurs also under pressure. They've sacked Thomas Frank. They were in a relegation scrap now, Tottenham. They're only 5 points clear from West Ham United in that relegation rut. And it is a very huge game for Arsenal. We need to win this game to be anywhere further away from Man City as possible. We want to win the league this season. We got to win this league this season. If we don't win the league this year, I think Arteta, all due respect, I think it's time for him to go, I think, if we don't win nothing all season. So this is our time now to pick things up, especially at the London Stadium. We can forget about Brentford, we can forget about Wolves, but this game here, the North London derby, they're a very vulnerable team, Tottenham, now, because they've lost Thomas Frank. They've got in this guy called Tudor. I don't really heard the guy before. I think he managed Juventus and not done well at Juventus, though, and they sacked him. He's the manager for Spurs. He's got no experience managing in the Premier League. The players are all injured as well. No fitness in the Spurs team. A lot of the players are Tottenham, all in the injury table. So we have to really go to this game here. Not just shaking, but go there with resilience. Go there and play as we have done all season until we capitulate a little bit after Wolves and also Brentford. But this game here in the North London derby, we have to squeeze Tottenham and win this game big. It's pressure for Tottenham as well because they're in a relegation fight. They got this new manager in, or interim manager Tudor. He's got to pick up some form quickly. But we need to win this game. We need to win this game to go and win this league this season. We've got to do it. After 22 years, we have to go and win it. And I do think my score prediction, I am not being biased about this, but I do think there are going to be goals in this game for both teams. But I do think Arsenal will be strong enough to go through and win the game. It'll be goals. No question about it for both teams. How poor we've been against Brentford and Wolves, I expect Tottenham to get some goals against us on Sunday. But I'm not being biased, however, because I do think we might scrape a win over Tottenham at their ground on Sunday. So my score prediction is going to be Tottenham Hotspur 2, Arsenal 3. 3-2 to the Arsenal. It will be 3-2 to Arsenal as my score prediction. I'm only saying this because we've been shaky, very, very nervous in the last few matches. Tottenham, however, they need to really play well now because Spurs are in big trouble. Big, dangerous trouble now in a relegation fight. They've got Tudor in charge now. He might really give Spurs momentum now from now until the end of the season. I think Spurs will be safe anyway. I don't think Spurs are going to be relegated this year. I hope they do, but I don't think they're going to go into it. I think they're going to really prove a point, of course, against Arsenal, their rivals. They've got to. They have to. They've got to play well against us. And but I don't think it'll be enough for Spurs due to the fact that we've got the quality. They've got injuries. We should obviously take this game very, very seriously. And I do think we've got a little bit about us to go and get that win. So I am going to go for the 3-2 win for the Gunners for the end of Matchday 27. Now we move on to Monday Night Football between Everton and Manchester United. And Michael Carrick, since he's been manager now for United, no losses since he took over from Ruben Amorim way back from January. As interim manager from now until the end of the season, he has done so well, he has. He beat Arsenal, he beat Man City. He's obviously defeated a few other teams before that as well. And even drawn to West Ham. They dropped points, obviously, but at the same time, they've got a point, and they're going to try and do anything what it takes now, Man United, now to go and qualify for the Champions League this season. That is Michael Carrick's objective. They've got no European football to worry about. They've got no FA Cup to worry about and no League Cup to worry about. All they've got their eyesights now on is the Premier League and to qualify in the Champions League. However, for Everton, at this season so far, Everton's a good side, a very good side. On their day, they could beat Man United. And I do expect Everton to might even do something at their stadium on Sunday at home to Man United, of course. But however, at the same time, with Man United's form recently, there's no team to stop them so far at the moment, apart from a draw from West Ham. And I do think in this matchup, it'll be a very boring game, I think, in this matchup. Very boring, I think, it's going to be. So my score prediction between Everton and Manchester United, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1 as my score prediction. I think Man United will score first, but I do think that Everton will score in the second half and get a point over Manchester United. And the both teams will get a point, draw against each other, and that'll be a whole of Matchday 27 of my Premier League predictions right there. But if you like this video of my Premier League predictions on Matchday 27, give me a subscribe on my YouTube channel. Comment down below on your predictions. Thank you all for watching and have a good weekend. And let's enjoy the Premier League football. Peace out.